TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Just in time for your summer playlist. Punchline's new single, Find Yourself, is out now.
Everybody got so good at everything. I'm just over here trying to keep my house clean. I have an eye flow, man. It's up and it's down. I'm wondering if this is why people leave town. This is not a joke, man. This is a fight. Trying to find yourself in the right place, the right time. But most of what I do.
Listen to Punchline's Find Yourself on Apple Music, Spotify, and everywhere else you can stream music. Duh.
What's the matter with the songs he's singing? Can't you tell that they're pretty lame? After listening to a couple albums, well, they all start to sound the same. So we tried to change his music style. He tossed all his ballads in the circular file. But then he found the punk style breaking ground all around his hillbilly Joel to me.
So, Matt, we're talking about what will be the first of many songs that didn't make it onto the album.
Yeah.
And we're doing this for a live stream event at Geekscape. So we wanted to bring in one of the heavy hitters of Geekscape, one of the people who's also kind of new to the network, similarly to Weird Algorithm. So I'd like to introduce Dustin of the $2 Late Fee podcast. Dustin, welcome.
Yes.
Thank you guys for having me. And thank you for, calling me a heavy hitter, even though I've been here 5.5 minutes. On the Geekscape Network, but
I literally just listened to you talk to Dean Cameron for the second time, so I consider you a pretty heavy hitter. In my heart
but
I love Dean Cameron.
I think you're the heavy hitter of the listeners. You're easily our heavy hitterist. I'm just making up verb tenses.
Heaviest hitterist listeners.
Yes, you really
there
are.
We go.
So
all of those things.
So thank you both.
But Dustin, you're the new one on the show. Matthew and I have already talked about our Weird Al love and our experiences with Weird Al. So before we even dive into this very strange, very not like Al song, I need to ask you, what's your journey with Weird Al? How did you discover Weird Al? And have you been a fan this whole time? Or did you, like many, have a period of time where you were too cool for Al and then came back?
Yes. Thank you for the question. I despise Weird Al with every fiber.
Okay.
No, I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding. No, Weird Al.
Hot take from the first guest.
Right? Wait, this is a Weird Al podcast?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to talk about Matt Damon. You guys were just, this is your podcast, so you understand that no one was doing what he was doing as far as when we were kids, and just hearing that, and you're like, I didn't even know that was a possibility, that you could take a song, rework it so it's, hilarious. And when you're 7 years old, it's hilarious, and then make an album that way. And one of my best friends who lived down the block from me, he had Weird Al's entire collection. So we'd go over, he'd play all the hits, and I'd be like, this guy's amazing. And utilizing the accordion and in the way that he did, that was also maybe my first foray into the coolness of the accordion. Yeah. And then, so I've always had that Weird Al foundation. And then I maybe 4 years ago, I met Weird Al for the first time in a Baja Fresh out here in LA. And he was eating by himself. He's just scarfing down a burrito because he had a show at the Hollywood Bowl, I feel like that night. And he got up to leave. And the way that this Baja Fresh is designed is that you go out the door and there's stairs right at the door. And there was a line for lunch, And so I was holding the door open. He walked by and I said, Al, huge fan. And in that same moment that he turned around to say thank you, he bit it so hard on the stairs, just slam. And I was like, oh no, because he couldn't turn around, and it was awkward. I mean, But he had to do that thing where he, just brushed it off like it was part of the, I didn't fall. So he just slammed his knees, slammed his like chest, got up and then never looked back at me. He just kept walking and he scurried away. And I was
so we're joined by the man who almost murdered Weird Al Yankovic down a flight of stairs. And
Dustin, I mean, again, first guest we've had on this podcast, and what a story to beat now. You ran into Al at a Baja Fresh.
And I felt awful.
Before his show. Al was eating alone at Baja Fresh.
At the single little table in the window. And I was like, man, he was like with the apples. What's that SNL character? He's like, Chris Kattan has this like weird character.
Yeah.
And it was like he was eating like that fast. Like he was just flying through it. And but anyway, I felt really horrible.
Oh my God.
Because we've all been there.
Imagine.
We've all fallen that way, or something.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover from that story.
Jesus. And Matthew,
that's
absolutely
incredible.
Correct. What a first story from a first guest. Really, the bar.
I
has
was
been
not
set.
prepared for that to come out like that. Everything about that story got better and better.
I'm so glad
as
you
it
liked
went.
it.
So let's talk about this song, and I've got a few things I want to say leading into this. First off, I mean, Matthew, I feel like this song, more than any other song that we've talked about so far, is just further evidence to the like Weird Al is a punk rocker in the early 80s. This is like
big time.
This is like defending the honor of punk and new wave for most of the song. But what I want to know is, with both of you, was this your first time hearing this song?
So I had heard the there's a really crappy video version of him and his band doing this from back in the day that I saw forever ago. I don't know why. I was just on YouTube stumbling around and I found this from an early concert of theirs, which you and I shared back and forth as well, Matt. And I had seen that. So I was aware that this song existed and I knew something of the lore behind it, but I had not heard that version you just played until right before we did this episode in anticipation of it. That's like the cleanest version of the entire track that I had ever heard before.
For sure. And how about you, Dustin? Was this just your first time even knowing the song existed?
I have heard this song before, but because I'm not a huge fan of the Billy Joel song, this didn't resonate or stay in my brain. Yeah.
See, I am a pretty diehard Billy Joel head, to be totally honest. I love Billy Joel. I like the album that this song is on that he was kind of bitching about. I think Glass House is a really good record.
Yeah.
But Al, in a couple interviews, he talked about a few things. I dug up a few different interviews, including one that was like last year during the pandemic. He did like a live stream show, and they played the video that Matthew's talking about, the really kind of crappy concert video, and they asked him to talk about if Billy Joel had ever heard the song, and he said, like, yeah, Billy Joel had heard the song, and he's like, and that was kind of the first time that he realized, A, that people might actually hear these things that he's saying, and it was also kind of the realization where he was like, well, I don't want to be mean to these artists, and that's kind of what the big shift, where it's like, after this first album, we do get, like, the wholesome version of Weird Al that we've come to know and love, because as Matthew and I talked about on the last couple episodes, like, the first album is dark and mean-spirited pretty much throughout.
He's mad. Well, it's funny you just made that. I'm going to do a connection to the thing you were talking about in your previous podcast, the One Hit Thunder. You guys were talking about, I was in the background listening, how you never expect the person you're talking about is going to hear you talking about them.
Yes.
When you're small, or when you feel small,
yes.
and which Al clearly did at this point in time. Like, he was just a kid writing goofy songs, and I mean, imagine, like, in a million years at the time, he probably never imagined Billy Joel would ever hear his name, let alone hear the song that he was doing. So it was all just fun and games, and then he started to get some attention, and once you get that attention, suddenly it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Well,
now I'm really like, am I comfortable with the person I'm talking about actually hearing what I'm saying about them?
Yeah, and this is one of the rare times where the parody song is about the artist. You know what I mean? Like, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 other times that ever happened. Obviously, the most famous one being Smells Like Nirvana. Yeah. But like, even that one was not remotely as mean-spirited as it's still
true.
Billy Joel to me. Like, it's still Billy Joel to me is like even just re-listening to it, this is like a pitchfork review in the form of a song.
Billy Joel was also a really easy target back then. You know,
for
like
sure.
it was funny because he was super popular, but he was an easy target. People loved making fun of Billy Joel. And Al's right on that bandwagon. Nirvana, when Al parodied Nirvana, they were at the height of their fame and they were like untouchably cool. So
Yeah.
doing a song pointing out their, you know, like sillier quirks was very endearing. It felt like they were, you know, it was okay to make those little references to this band that was otherwise untouchable.
Yeah.
But Billy Joel as an easy target, I actually feel like Billy Joel's cred has gone way up in more recent years
Well, and
compared
this
to back
is
then.
this is beginning of 80s Joel, which is so so like debated on if it's good or not that it became like a joke in Step Brothers, right? That there was the only 80s Joel cover band, which like the joke being like no one would ever want to hear anything post The Stranger, right? Like like why would you ever? But I love Glass Houses. I think I mean I feel like Dustin already played his hand on this, but Matthew, are you a fan of Billy Joel?
I am, although I have to, you know, I am probably one of those people who I think when I was a kid. I grew up on Long Island, so Billy Joel,
It's a religion.
It's religious, and it's also as a kid who grew up as a punk rock kid, could not have been more toxic to me as a child. Like I was like, no way, absolutely not. But now, as an adult who is into music, I listen to those records. I'm like, these are solid. Like it's really hard to find much to complain about. I think he wrote great songs. I think the 70s records are incredible. And I think that his ability to write like mainstream pop hits in the 80s was also pretty incredibly solid.
And there's a lot of like non-singles on those. Like I think Where's My Orchestra on Nylon Curtain, like the closing track to that album, is like one of the prettiest songs I've ever fucking heard. And it's like a heartbreaking song. Like it's literally like Billy Joel's version of Send in the Clowns, where it's just like it's like him just writing a eulogy to his career, basically. Like it's heavy. But I'm a big fan of the writing of Chuck Klosterman, who's done the book Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs, and he has this whole essay about like what made Billy Joel so cool was the fact that he was the least cool person in any situation.
Yeah.
And that like he's like, you can't find a love song by Billy Joel that's not just soaked in sadness and melancholy. Like all of them are so depressing. But Dustin, I'm just assuming because you had made a comment. Are you a Joel fan or not really?
Well, I need to clarify. I'm not a fan of still rock and roll to me.
Okay.
That is why. But Billy Joel, I am a fan of. And same as you, Matthew, it's like as an adult, kind of like keying into the lyrics where I was like, oh, this guy's a songwriter. You know, like even like hearing Piano Man and really listening to Piano Man, I was like, whoa, there's a lot of layers to this song.
There's also something he has done that I think is really interesting, and we're just talking about Billy Joel now, which is totally fine. I'm on board. His last album was in 1993.
Yep, River
and
of
he
Dreams.
has just continued. Yeah, exactly, River of Dreams, and he just kept going. And he had a big hit on that record, and he has continued and just very openly been like, I don't feel like I have any more songwriting. I can't write at that level anymore, and I'm going to stop, and I'm just going to continue to perform, and I'm going to play the stuff that I'm really proud of, and I'm not going to keep going. And that's amazing. There are very, very few. I actually cannot offhand think of another artist who did that.
Really good point.
Yeah.
Who has had the, I don't know, the self-awareness. You know, so many people, like, as they get older, and honestly, I don't fault some of the more like the older.
We're recording this at the same time that Pink Floyd released one of the worst songs I've ever heard.
Oh my God,
the Ukraine.
Pink Floyd.
You know what I mean? Like,
And honestly, they're not even terrible. Sometimes like McCartney is still putting out records, and I listen. I'm like, yeah, okay, there's a couple like nice songs on this, but I mean, when was the last time that he put out like a vital album? Like Billy Joel just being like, unless I can top the charts with what I'm writing, I'd rather not write. I have a lot of respect for that as an attitude and an approach. It's kind of antithetical to being a pop artist in a way. I don't know. I'm blown away by that level of awareness and kind of control of your career in a way.
Yeah.
And the last cool Billy Joel thing that I want to mention before we dive into this song a little bit is I heard this rumor, and I think it's true, that Billy Joel at every concert he plays, buys all of the tickets for the first 3 rows, and then has roadies go up into the nosebleed section and give those tickets to people, because
that's true. That's great.
He was like, I was just sick of playing these songs for people who could afford the front row but didn't care about it as anything other than a status symbol. Like, I'd rather play in front of people who love my songs and are singing along. And he's like, and those are the people who are going to spend $20 to sit in the nosebleeds just because they want to be there to hear that music live. Yep. So it's like, that is like taking your rock star power and showing a real love and appreciation for your fans in a way that very few artists do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is mind-blowing
and heartbreaking
how many original scripts are written every year but are never made.
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts.
Movies made of paper.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Free!
But all right, so it's still Billy Joel to me. Yes, it is very mean. I still think it's very funny. I think it's
it's
very
funny.
Good song.
I mean, he's got some really great references, and I do love the fact that he is, as you pointed out, he is rallying against, like, it's clear that Al comes from this punk, and Al's definition of new wave, which he keeps referencing in this song because Billy Joel references new wave in his song. It's clearly making fun of Billy Joel's interpretation, because Al is just like, we must be hearing different things when you're using that word or that term.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think.
I don't think that. Yes.
But yeah, like, it is a wild song. I remember I first heard this song actually on Comedy Bang Bang back when it was called Comedy Death Ray.
Oh yeah.
And they had Weird Al in the studio, and he had found a much cleaner live version of it, and they played that on the show, and I was like blown away by how much I enjoyed the wildness of that song, because I do love It's Still Rock and Roll to Me. I do love that. Like I said, I love that whole Glass Houses album, but it's like, show me the lie in the lyrics at the same time. It's like he's saying truthful things simultaneously.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you pointed out, so Al has said that he knows Billy Joel heard the track. There's some interesting, like, legend behind this song that I was seeing. There's a lot of conflicting reports online about whether or not Al asked permission for this and got denied, or if he actually never asked because he wrote it, and then when the record came around, kind of chickened out in a way and was like, there's no way we're going to be like, is it cool if we do this? And they were like, forget it. We're just going to scrap it. And that's that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and another thing that I heard, which I think is also probably makes sense, and I want to just make sure I get this album correct, but this demo is from 1980, which was right when Glass Houses came out, but the self-titled Weird Al album wasn't going to come out until 83, where at that point, like, Nylon Curtain had already come out, which was kind of a little bit of a return to the 70s sound of Joel, and then An Innocent Man came out, which was like an all 50s rock album. So I think there was also that element of, like, none of the things that we're talking about are even remotely relevant to Billy Joel's career by 1983. Like, it was a song that one of the proudest songs I ever wrote when I was writing music as an angry 20-year-old. It's like, I can't even pretend that anyone would care about this song anymore, because it was literally a song about the music scene in the early 2000s. So it's like talking about, oh, you're wearing your girl pants and you've got your studded belts and you're like, it's like, it just doesn't hold, like, pink shirts and trucker hats. Like, it was like references to that where it's like, that's like barely, like, if I put that out in 2022, like, the audience would be like, why are you talking about how we dressed 16 years ago? Like, that's so pointless.
Best way to date yourself in your music.
Yeah, exactly.
Start naming things.
Oh, God. And just throwing this out there because it ties to a bunch of stuff, but someone on Twitch actually asked us, have we seen the new Nerf Herder music video of them covering My Bologna that dropped today? I haven't got it
today.
Yeah,
no, I had no idea.
I didn't see it yet, but obviously, Matthew and I both talked about, we have some connections to Nerf Herder, so I think someone from Nerf Herder will be on this podcast sooner rather than later.
Interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Dustin, let's talk a little bit about What are your thoughts with the lyrics? What do you think of this very strange, angry parody from Weird Al Yankovic?
Yeah. Well, I think, to the point that you guys were both talking about earlier, it's like when you are in your 20s, it's very easy to disconnect from that mean-spiritedness, that just kind of will naturally come up. Even though I feel like now we all like have that to a degree, but you just kind of know better, especially once you're, quote, sitting at the table, like once you know, once you realize there's a possibility, oh, these people in my circle could be, hearing this or seeing this or whatever. So I do think, yes, I enjoy it, but there is that kind of like, oh, wow, it really is mean-spirited for the sake of being mean-spirited. And I think he feels that kind of fearlessness because, like you guys said, I'm not going to meet Billy Joel. I don't care.
Yeah. Let's
just ride this wave of this guy's, he's oversaturated. He's everywhere. He's a poser. He's talking about walking through Bed-Stuy alone. Like he's so tough.
Yeah.
Not in this song, but you're like, really?
Yeah.
Like even like Uptown Girl, like as a kid, I was like, is this guy like, is he blue collar? Like he doesn't seem that way to me. And like does he work on cars? Can Billy Joel fix your carburetor? That's the question I pose.
I feel like I go through that same feeling with another artist that is in the similar ballpark of Billy Joel, that I also love their music, but there's a certain point where I'm like, can Bruce Springsteen still claim to be writing for the middle class when he's been like the biggest songwriter for 4 decades?
Right.
Like,
similar era, similar, yeah.
Yeah,
Coast.
It's true. I don't know if you saw his the Broadway show that Springsteen did, which they filmed. It's on Netflix and stuff too, but it's the opening of the show. He was like, I never had a factory job in my entire life. I've never worked 9 to 5. I've never done any of that. He's like, my whole career is based on a lie.
That's brilliant.
By his own admission, he's
at
like,
least he's self-aware.
That's my
about
trick.
it.
Yeah.
I do want to analyze, man. So I'm looking at these lyrics, because even just listening to the song now, reading this specific line is just so mean, which is, well, what's the matter with the tune he's writing? It's going to be a smash. It's so nice when you're a big name artist. It doesn't matter that it sounds like trash. Like, holy hell, Weird Al.
Yeah.
Your shitty music is popular.
No.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
what you're saying.
And he's also got the lyric making fun of, like, I guess he's saying that Billy Joel presents himself like more punk rock than he is. The whole, maybe he should dye his hair bright pink and stick a safety pin through his cheeks. Then he'd really fit the new wave image, but he couldn't sit down for weeks. That's also a kind of a blue lyric for Al.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
Yeah.
It's one of I would say there's one of like 3 blue lyrics in his entire career, and that's
there are not
the
many.
big one. I also, look, as a diehard B-52s fan, I love that he's standing up for the B-52s in that last verse.
Oh my God.
Hey, we're
said no one ever.
When we get to In 3D. He does his B-52's homage.
Yeah, and like pre-Love Shack. That's the craziest thing. He's doing an homage to like My Own Private Idaho and like Rock Lobster era B-52s, which is, I mean, I like Love Shack, but that is to me prime B-52s when it is just some of the strangest guitar riffs and just weird noises. Fun fact, did you know that the B-52s song Rock Lobster is instrumental in John Lennon deciding to come back and record more music, because he heard the weird noises that they were making in the background and thought, finally, the radio is ready for what Yoko and I have been doing.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I had not heard that before. That is amazing. It doesn't totally surprise me, because I think it all the time. Anytime I hear that song, Rock Lobster, all I think the entire time it's playing is like, this was a hit. Can you believe this was a hit song? Can you imagine someone at a record label hearing that song and be like, yeah, we'll go with that?
Yeah, dude.
Because it is long. It goes on forever.
Yep.
It's that scene where they're singing about all of the different animals and each member makes a noise. Like,
it's
just
so
like,
crazy.
Here comes the jellyfish. Whoop, whoop. Like, it's like, but that apparently was the moment when they started doing those noises.
That's amazing.
He was like, they're ready. They're ready for the Plastic Ono band finally.
Oh my God, that's wild.
I love that.
When I heard that story, I'm like, that checks and is also amazing and hilarious at the exact same time to me.
Yeah.
I think that this is an interesting song. I'm curious, do you think we should rank this with our parody songs, or do we ignore the demos that never fully made it?
That's interesting because we didn't talk about this in advance. I'm inclined to say that we should stick to the official catalog. I love talking about these things, but in terms of like the actual ranking structure, I feel like we should keep it within official canon discography.
I won't put it on the official rankings, but I am curious. Amongst all the other
we can talk about it.
Amongst all the other parodies that appeared on the self-titled, where do you think you would put this one?
Off the record. This is completely off the record. No one's listening to us. Where would I rank this?
Because I would put it at number 2, right below Ricky, right above My Bologna. I really like this song.
Wow.
What? Yeah.
And I ranked My Bologna number 1 of the parodies of the first record, right?
Yours was My Bologna at number 1, I Love Rocky Road at number 2, Ricky at number 3, Another One Rides the Bus at number 4, and we both agree that Stop Dragging My Car Around so far was the worst parody that we've heard by Al.
I'll put it above Another One Rides the Bus.
Ooh, putting him in that.
I will
put him in that 4th slot if we were
smack in
this.
the middle there of this stuff, because this does have the. I love. We were talking about actually some of this stuff that he did by himself and this like really kind of rough DIY sounding recordings of him alone. But I really like the sound he gets on this one. This is like, I love, just from a purely like technical thing, in the middle section of the song, it's supposed to be a drum fill. It's like a triplet drum fill down the drums before the second verse. And he just slams the accordion keys like like that. And it sounds so cool. Like that's, again, a punk rock thing. Like, man, I want to hear him do more of that kind of stuff. It's like, I do miss, or we will miss as we get past this time period of his, the real sort of rough and ready style of this stuff, because they get so much slicker as soon as the album 1 time period is over and we get into Eat It and all that stuff. It gets so much more hi-fi.
Yeah.
How do we sound exactly like the recording instead of just like a band covering a song? Well, Dustin, thank you so much for joining us, giving us someone to bounce our thoughts off on this. Where can people check out more of Dustin? It's
my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. This has been really fun. And you can, I'm part of the Geekscape network, $2 late fee with Zach Schaefer. We do 80s movies, 80s soundtracks, 80s celebrity interviews. Matt Kelly is our number 1 fan. And what did we say? My utmost, I don't even remember what it was, but you were the highest tierist fanist, something like that.
Yeah.
Upper level. So thank you guys.
A heavy hitter. He's the heaviest hitter.
Heaviest hitterist. Thank you. Yes, that's what it was.
That's it. We got it back. I didn't meet Al. I didn't watch Al fall out of a Baja Fresh. I can't compete with that. But I did do a remote recording without ever speaking to him in real life.
As good.
It's not even close to as good, honestly. I can't believe that Baja Fresh story. That's gonna haunt me.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.